Welcome to Vintage SF. I'm Richard Rempel, and this one is a show and tell. I want to look at some of the comments I've had on videos. I also want to look at some gifts that I've received, and I want to take a look at a brand new bookstore, an SF bookstore here in Winnipeg. But first, a couple leftover gifts from PulpFest. First, Mark, who's also known as Glockensig, gave me this Zippo lighter with engraved vintage SF on the back. Of course, I'll need some butane for it. I'm glad I didn't have butane in here going over the border. The other gift I wanted to show you, when we visited the Merrill collection in the Toronto Public Library with Andrea of Infinite Text, we also received a poster. We received a poster from the library. It has that Kelly Freas artwork for a Frederick Brown book from the 1950s. The title escapes me at the moment. You can just enter it down below in the comments if you'd like. I also want to show you my collection of shirts by Nick. That's Nick of the book Graveyard. He runs a screen printing business, and here are 4 shirts that I've received from him. Quite a while ago, I received this DAW t-shirt. Then, when I got to PulpFest, I purchased a PulpFest shirt made by Nick. And when Nick arrived at PulpFest, he gave me a Weird Frequencies shirt. I contributed to the first volume of the anthology. And he and Jake combined gave me the Pulp Mortem shirt. All these gifts are very much appreciated. Thank you, folks. Now, I want to go to perhaps the most hilarious conversation that I had this week. Some of you may have been watching Rob of SpaceArchives journeys to and from PulpFest just like me. He traveled 5,441 miles. That's about 8,750 kilometers. And he got 511 books. Take a look at that stack. I'd say that Rob is about 6 feet tall. Now, in his last book haul video from Las Cruces, New Mexico and Tucson, Arizona, he was saying that he would be going home to Phoenix the next day. I made the following comment. First, I talked a little bit about his opening. He always does a quote at the opening, and he used lorem ipsum. If you don't know, that is the fill-in text that you might put in a magazine or a website until you have your actual text. Then he had this huge sigh, his road trip coming to an end. I said, "You seemed resigned to your compulsion. I've stopped at Coa's bookstore downtown Las Cruces a few times now and have never been disappointed. Great to see some footage of the store. Zena Henderson was a kindergarten teacher in the Tucson area. Shh. I know one more bookstore you might like in Tucson. And it's cut off here, but it was called The Book Stop, and it's on 4th Avenue near downtown." What was hilarious is Mrs. L. Space, Rob's wife, chimed in and she said, "Why, Richard, why?" And I said, "I'm an enabler." And then take a look at this next one we got from her. It's pointing at me and then there's a poop emoji and laughter. I replied with a shocked face. And Mrs. L. Space said, "Giggle. I looked it up and that shop does look pretty neat, but alas, they are closed today. Rob is off the hook until our next Tucson trip." And I replied, "Phew, I guess that means I'm off the hook too. By the way, my wife really wants to meet you now." Mrs. L. Space replied, "Was it the poo?" And I said, "She loves when people give me poo." The next comment came from my video where we visited the libraries in Toronto. Andrea of Infinite Text was our guide. In the comments, I had 2 comments about the Bakka Phoenix bookstore, one of the oldest bookstores in the world that was continuously just solely an SF bookstore. Back in the 70s, it was known just as Bakka. Later on, when there was a new owner, it was Bakka Phoenix. It was rising from the ashes or rebirth of that bookstore. But anyways, back in the 70s, I had 2 comments about a particular signing that occurred in 1977. Alan Ginger 282 says, "I used to go to the Bakka bookstore back in the early and mid 70s on Queen Street near Spadina. What a great time. Then they opened a second shop on Yonge Street right across from their reference library. That's where I got to meet Harrison Ford Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill, as they were signing copies of the Star Wars novelization paperback. Still have it. Unfortunately, they didn't last as long at that location. They also ended up on Yonge Street near Wellesley, as I recall, before moving to their current location. A terrific bookstore for sure. Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill signing a novelization that was by Alan Dean Foster? Well, originally it was credited to George Lucas, but it was Alan Dean Foster, I believe, who was the actual ghostwriter for it. This seemed unusual. I can't remember novelizations being signed by the stars of the movie that was novelized. But there was a second comment confirming this. Philip Berger, X4G, says, Bakka Books was a regular haunt of ours when I lived in the Toronto area, when it was situated on Queen Street. They briefly had a branch on Yonge Street, where I went to a Star Wars signing, the first one. Yes, I saw 35-year-old Harrison Ford in the flesh. What are the chances that I would have two different people talk about a Star Wars signing in 1977? I asked Philip if he could provide any further information about this. I was very curious. In the 70s, and I don't know for how long, Bakka would print their own magazine or fanzine. And here is a copy that has the information about this signing. This is Bakka magazine number 6, science fiction issue. There's an autograph party for Star Wars. It says, as I hung up the film one day in early June, it dawned on me that Star Wars was turning into a film of great importance, even before the movie had broke in Toronto. The call had been from Diane Schwalm, the publicity director of Bellevue Films, the distributor for 20th Century Fox, and she had asked if Bakka would like to host an autograph session with the 3 young stars of the new movie. Sure, I said. A date was set. Ballantyne placed ads, and as you can see from the photos, a fine time was had by all. During the hour that Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford were with us, a throng of some 300 people filed through to say hello, take photos, and get autographed books. Final note, for all the media coverage and appearances of the 3 stars, the crew here at Bakka can say that Mark, Carrie, Harrison are fine people. Thanks, gang. You've all been made honorary Boses. I'm not sure what Boses is. If there's someone from Toronto from that time period that can tell me what that is, let me know in the comments below. But can you imagine 300 people swarming this small bookstore to see these stars? And of course, if this happened just a few years later, you would need a convention center to hold the people who would want to see these stars. What a great memory. And we had 2 of those 300 people commenting on my video. I think that's pretty cool. Here's a couple more pages from that magazine. Some of the captions say, Star Trek versus Star Wars? Flower calls Mark Hamill. Carrie versus Writer's Cramp. Halftime juice break for Harrison Ford. Carrie passes to Harrison. Look at the way Carrie's looking at Harrison. The next page was the ad for the autograph party at Bakka 2. This was in the Toronto Sun Wednesday, June 15th of 1977. And the first photo, the Star Wars tide of people coming into the store. Mark Hamill, have I got a deal for you? Harrison Ford, and then Lucas wanted us to, and Carrie Fisher, my arms folding. And the last page I have for you here, Carrie Fisher, if they give me another book, I'm not sure about the second picture here. Harrison Ford's asking, got a light? And then we have a spelling error here, but the last photo says Mark and Descending Doom. And then I found one color photo of Mark Hamill here with that flower that was set up in the spot where he was signing beside Carrie Fisher. These photos of that magazine come from bradmiddleton.ca. It's a blog post remembering that signing in 1977. I'll put a link to his blog post in the description below. Now, while we were at the Bakka Phoenix bookstore, I was starting to talk to some of the clerks, told them a little bit about my channel and that I was from Winnipeg. And they said, Winnipeg? There is a brand new science fiction and fantasy bookstore that has just opened called Other Places Books. It had only been open for less than a week. So when I got back to Winnipeg, I decided I was going to visit that bookstore. It's located at 436 Graham Avenue here in downtown Winnipeg. While there, I had a chance to talk to the owner, Dee Dee. But what I love doing is supporting bookstores and supporting Winnipeg places as well. So this place just opened up. Could you just introduce yourself and the store that we're in right now here?
Hi, I'm Dee Dee. they, them. And this is my store that's been open for a week and 2 days. It's called Other Places Books. It's a science fiction and fantasy bookstore with a strong queer lens. And we've got lots of books here.
You know, one place that told me about you is I was just recently in Toronto at Bakka Books.
Yes.
And they said, you're from Winnipeg? You got to check out Other Place. What is it again? Other Places?
Other Places Books.
Other Places Books. So that's cool. You're getting people from across the country supporting you.
You know, I know them from social media. I know them from Blue Sky, and they've been so supportive. And you know, they're the premier science fiction fantasy bookstore of this entire country.
Yes. Yeah.
And for them to be so supportive and they're like, send us your bookmarks, and we'll be able to give them to people like you,
Right.
who are from Winnipeg or the area, and tell them about the store. And I haven't done that yet. I need to print more bookmarks, but it is so nice of them.
That's very cool. Well, I wish you a lot of luck. This is a very beautiful store you have here. And just to make sure that people understand, this is new books that you have here.
Yes.
And you're actually right beside a Canadian institution of Bison Books, which has
Yes.
some used bookstores. So it's a kind of a nice synergy, perhaps, between you two.
Yes, and they've been wonderful neighbors. They made an Instagram video in this store with me to promote the opening. Truly could not have asked for better neighbors.
Awesome. Well, thank you very, very much, Dee Dee. And it was a pleasure meeting you, and all the best.
Pleasure meeting you as well.
Thank you. I didn't leave Other Places Books empty-handed either. Earlier this year, I received this book from Whitney of Secret Sauce of Storycraft. There is a sequel to this book. And I purchased a brand new issue of A Desolation Called Peace by Arcady Martine. That's my first purchase now from Other Places Books. If you are in Winnipeg, stop by and see what other places you can go. Let me know in the comments below if you like this kind of a video where we have sort of a potpourri of news and items. I really do like going into some of the comments and talking about them or exploring them further. Until next time, keep reading.